So one of the excellent things about all the technology of Kundalini Yoga, we're very blessed, but certainly this one, this Hust Kriya, we've been working with this all year, and you still have time to get some time under your belt before the year is out. But one of the wonderful things about it is that you're putting this kind of prevalence of the Jupiter frequency in the Akashic record, the Akashic center, Akashic record. What else could we call that thing? Your arc line, or better, I think a better term for it, your iCloud, your incarnational iCloud. So you can go in there, and if there's patterns in there that are not particularly, serving your relational kind of experience, which is every experience. The way that the people who are the most successful on this planet, they have good, long-term, well-communicated and respected relay relationships in any sector. The people who have they can make this is how you have connections, because you can make the call to people because you haven't burnt every bridge and broken up with every brain, caused a problem with every situation. So you have people you can call. Think about it. True, Mary Margaret, right? In the corporate world, I mean, this is what gives you power in a career, which is that you've cultivated relationships and you can call upon those relationships. So the kind of, there's no part of your life that isn't a relay. And we have a little issue with this, and a lot of times we have a little issue with the relay of the relationships, first and foremost with ourselves, then out to other relationships that we have to deal with. And that's everything, always, constantly. There was this funny moment, Joanna and I were in New York City, and we were walking, and we literally at the, may have been just, moments before, been talking about how great it is to not have kids. And some woman was on the street and she was bent over with the 5-year-old, and you could tell she knew that she was in a public arena and the kid was having a total meltdown. And you just, she was like, the kid was fine, because the kid knew it was pulling the strings, but was kind of faking a fit. And the mom was just like, she was shaking, like the face was red, and she was like on, the bending down into the face of the kid, like, we need to talk about this. Like, the mom's having a meltdown, and I really had I had like such a moment. It wasn't the kid really that was having the meltdown. It was the parent. And so, everything's a relay. So you're dealing with, and the issue with the relay with children is that you installed those patterns. So then you have to that's what Yogi Bhajan calls paying rent, parent. But with these other things, the parents installed patterns around relationship in utero, and that's why we have this Rogan Tay. So no matter how kind of checkered the relay was between your parents or the people that you saw in these kind of programming years, which are pretty early. I mean, you get these relational kind of programs very early. 40 days out of the womb, you're programmed pretty hardcore. Then the first 3 years, you have this kind of what's known as a sound. Yogi Bhajan calls it a sound ring, thank you. And so in that sound ring, whatever's kind of relaying in that sound ring, so if your parents are fighting or if there's kind of that type of stuff that many of us had when we were kids, that's relaying into the sound ring. And Yogi Bhajan said, a human is just a sound box. And those sounds are repeating themselves over and over and over again until you present a better sound or we'll call it, in those days, the way he talked about it was a tape recorder, but until you record a better sound on your sound box and it plays something more interesting than these old patterns that you picked up between the parents and the incarnational patterns, some scars, that kind of thing, then that's going to be the thing that's playing. And so you get, a lot of that gets recorded, we'll call it, both incarnationally, but in this lifetime, it gets recorded in those first 3 years. So everything that's been said in those first 3 years, if, whatever went down, that is recorded somewhere deep in your subconscious sound box. Now, we have a technology that you can go in and totally change that. Now, we have even a deeper gift, which Guru Jagat gave before she went into her 40 days, and Hari Jivan White Sun, in which that Rogan Tay. Because the Rogan Tay will go now back into the in utero relay that you were recording. The nervous system, the way that it develops in utero is that it's basically imprinted fatty tissue around the spine, the central nervous system, and the brain. And it gets imprinted through what? Vibration. And so we can change that imprint through vibration. And so whatever kind of got imprinted in there, everything that you are experiencing in your relay with the children, with the friends, some people like break up with friends. Do you know those people? It's a lot of work. I mean, having a friend in general is really a lot of work. Who has time for that? Then you're going to break up with a friend. I mean, people get into all sorts of what Yogi Bhajan calls psycho circles with this. So it doesn't have to just be the romantic relationships. But oftentimes, we display this most in our most intimate relationships. We maybe are on a little bit of our better behavior, or if there's sex is not involved, then we'll call it the neuroendocrine cascade is not as intense, so that what often we call feelings, the chemistry is a little less active if you're not actually having sex with the person. So with friendship and other types of relationships, they're a great place to practice this stuff, because it's, even though you may have some sort of pattern that you're displaying, which you are. That's why I like The Office. I haven't watched the British one yet, but I can't wait. I'm still making it through the American one. But why I like The Office is because it's just tickled me to know. I'd never watched it before until recently, because it's such a display of the familial patterns in the office setting. And it's very accurate, actually, to that display. They just make it extreme. But that it's a very accurate portrayal of basically how we're recapitulating the familial patterns in our work life. So that's just very, very, very common. In fact, it's always happening. But if we brought up, which we're not going to do, we want this to be a nice time for you this week. But let's say we brought up, 5 to 10 of your exes here in a panel. They would all have to say a very similar thing about why the relationship didn't work. You're aware of this, yes? All of their stories would be similar. There may be some different nuances, but all of their stories would be similar. That's why we break up those people and we never talk to them again, because we don't want to hear about that. So that's so we know that the display of this thing is getting, and when you start to work with this, hopefully a couple things can happen. One is it can just change completely and immediately. So that's what we were just working on with Immense Grace all weekend, is that the depth of the healing can become so quantum that it just changes immediately. So you don't have your issues anymore. Because people, in the New Age and the psychotherapeutic, people are carrying around their issues. It's called spiritual materialism. Your issue becomes a Cartier bracelet. Oh, you have that issue? I have that issue too. The issue becomes something that where we actually create materialism around, right? And then we create, friend groups around and all sorts of things, because we all have that issue. You see that displayed a lot on, as Tej said, I totally forget when we're in New York City that everyone, like Lower East Side, everyone goes there to get drunk. I just completely ignore it. But Tej was like, yeah, Rama, New York is right in the middle of where everyone comes to get drunk. I had totally forgotten. I was like, oh yeah, that's true. I just ignore the whole thing. But you see that displayed out in the streets, the friend groups. That's why people oftentimes dress and look the same. And I did a little bit of this during teacher training level 1, showing this incredible artist, European artist. He, on the same day in the same city, he would take pictures of people all over the city throughout the day, wearing the same outfit. And his whole body of work over the past 20 years is about mind control and how we think that we're putting on our outfit because we want to put on our outfit, but that we have very little sovereign kind of decision making because of these patterns. And their pattern in his work, it's the patterns that are coming from the hypnosis of the media. But in our scene, let's just work with the patterns that are coming from the hypnosis of the great programmers, the parents, and the culture. Parents, religion, culture, that kind of stuff. But parents, first and foremost. And then when there's some patterns that you brought along with you, just to make it interesting through the incarnation. But that's what we're working with. So you see that displayed out, when people are going out. There's groups of people that are basically in kind of a collusion. They look the same. They talk the same. They all have the same kind of status, relationship status. That kind of thing. That's a display of that. That's how we're kind of relaying, that we can only relay with people who kind of have our same issue. Now, what we want for you is at least that you have, a more diverse kind of variety of varietals of people around you who have different, issues, so that at least then, we're creating some biodynamic issues, so that we can kind of, that things are changing if there's actually, you're not just hanging out with people who have the same issue as you. Does that make sense? That's very important. That's a very pragmatic. So people around you aren't dealing with the same issue as you. They're dealing with a different issue. That way you guys can, have some farm-to-table biodynamic experience with each other. But so these these programs, these come very, very early, and that relay is just that relay of the self is of course the first thing that we're dealing with, and then we venture out to start having relay with other people. That's when things start to our teen years. That's when things start to get complicated. My goddaughter went to homecoming on Saturday night, and we were like, so what? So the guy doesn't come pick you up? No, he doesn't pick you up. I'm like, well, does he bring you flowers? No, he doesn't bring you flowers. I'm like, well, do you talk to him like the whole night? Like, what do you do? I mean, why is it even a date? Well, maybe we'll get something to eat afterwards. And I was like, all right, things have changed. I don't know what's going on around here. So this is, there's a generational relay mores as well, because we're now in the technological age. So, this is they're just DMing each other while they stand together at the homecoming dance. That's a date. It's deep. It's intimate. It's really going far. But that, we have different things. But so what we're interested in, what we'd like to work with a little bit this morning, is in order for you to actually, and this is, this is revelatory. So let this be our prayer this week together and at the Institute. If you ignite the power of your, we'll call it your we use this term all weekend, pelvic ignition. It's a Yogi Bhajan term. If you ignite the power of your lower chakras in balance, so that then they can start to open up the heart and the upper triangle, then you're going to start to have a type of confidence and a type of sovereignty and magnetism that will change all of your relationships. So it does not matter what your current issues are in your relationships. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. You could literally throughout the next, couple of days, you can, because why? Because then what you're kind of putting into the relay totally changes. Therefore, we've had 1 million cases of this, so we know, both personally and otherwise, that it works. Therefore, when you go back to the same person, this is why you don't have to change anybody. When I said, Yogi Bhajan, and these are transcripts of the 6 weekends Yogi Bhajan worked with the men, because he worked with women 40 years, 3 months a year. And the men started being a little disgruntled. They were like, okay, can we get something here? So he threw down these 6 weekends, and there's, utter brilliance in here. It's just unbelievable, the teachings that he gave. So he basically gave everything you needed in a much shorter amount of time, so you guys can, watch the game and stuff, not have to be bothered every summer, 3 months. So you guys were lucky. But and I always say, this is a heteronormative. So if you're not in a heteronormative relationship, these are universal laws. So they fit in different. These are polarities. So they fit into different categories. You can put these universal laws in any gender spectrum, in any kind of identification or display of relationship. So you just got to, for anybody who's looking to kind of put these laws into action in a non-heteronormative sense, you just find what actually is resonant, because there's a lot of these universal laws that run through every type of relay. It does not matter. They're very, very, very universal. But he said if the woman's having a problem in a relationship with a guy, whether it's her son or her coworker or the boss or her employee, or if it's a romantic situation, it's a much easier problem to solve, because the male psyche is actually pretty straightforward. If a man is having a problem with a woman in a relationship, so whether it's a daughter or an employee or a coworker or a romantic interest, this is much more complex. So I tell the women complain about relationship more, because it's just part of our, charm. And so the female psyche is more identified with kind of interest in relay. So they found that those studies that they did on, the limbic brain, fight and flight, that's only true for men. You guys hear about this? So they only did the studies on male subjects. So then when they went and did those types of limbic brain studies on women, what do? We tend and be friends. We talk, we're friends now. Everybody's friends. And that is a good example of that in Orange is the New Black. It doesn't matter where women are, they're going to create very complex relationships. So I love that Orange is the New Black, because you just see this kind of, you put women together, whether it's in jail or whether it's at line and, wherever it is, they're gonna start to create much more complex relationships. That's just the way it goes. So if it's dealing with a woman in relationship is a much more complex thing, because she has a more complex psyche and body to handle the making of a child if she so chooses. So the makeup is much more complex. So Yogi Bhajan says in this, if a woman tries to change me, I ignore her and I do nothing. It's a good, and I gave this a couple of days ago, but I'll tell the men in here again, just a good thing. Then, so if you're a woman in here and you have a problem in a male, with the relay of a male, you come to that relationship and you've changed your scene, the relationship is going to change greatly. Now, if you're a man, it's the same thing. It's just a more complex system you're working with. So it's the difference between, a PC and a Mac. I don't know which one's more complex, but you're just working with a different system. But if you kind of ignite and hardly any human on this planet has an ignited lower triangle that is also balanced. There are very few. So what most of us, if somebody has some energy in the lower triangle, often because of what's going on this planet and what we've come from, it's not balanced. So what we're interested in is let's create some real balanced power in this chakra system, coming first from these lower chakras. And then you go out and you relay with the people that you've been relaying with, or you're going out on a date or this kind of thing. You're going to get a much different response, relay back, than you've ever gotten. So that's a great kind of pragmatic way to know that the relay is changing. You're putting a different kind of relay out there. And if it's somebody, old, your old lady or your old man, you've been dealing with people for a long time, you'll really notice, because you have a long list of archives of ways that they've responded and wrongs they've done you and resentments that you have against them. So you'll really notice in long-term relationship when you come to it with a different kind of frequency, and your chakra system, your lower chakras are balanced and ignited, the heart's open, and the frequency of communications coming from the upper triangle, as well as whatever else you need to kind of use to relay in that moment, you're going to notice a big difference between what was before and what is now. So you have some good, this is called Rama Institute for Applied Yogic Science and Technology. So when you go out there and you start to apply this stuff, make note, because you're a yogic scientist now, make note of, okay, that, when I really had a balance thing and then I relayed with this person, this is how different they responded to me than when I came from, I didn't do my Sakriya, or I was all freaked out, or I was in my stress kind of reactive personality, how that relay goes down. And then you don't have to change anybody. All you have to do is work on you to change yourself. So it makes you don't have to drag anybody to couples counseling. You don't have to change anybody. And then the people in your life are really appreciative about that, because you're no longer trying to change them, which they're resentful about. They're very appreciative, like, oh great, she hasn't asked me to come to yoga for a while. I'm really happy about that. And then they start to, they're into it, and then that starts to increase the relay as well. They're very happy, and then you're starting to come with a whole different frequency. I mean, we have a whole. We're going to make it official here sometime soon. There's a whole group of men across the world called the Husbands That Love Guru Jagat. Husbands and boyfriends that love Guru Jagat. I mean, I get messages, emails when they meet me. They'll come to the yoga class just to shake my hand. Like, they're not taking I just wanted to say thank you. I just really, one guy, did a New Year's cheer. He was with like all the friends and the family. And he's like, I'd like to make a toast. I'd never met them before. They told me this later. I'd like to make a toast to Guru Jagat. It's been the best year of my life. So, people start to notice that whatever you're up to, it's helping. Right? And so then they're where once they were like, oh man, I don't like when she gets out of bed too early. They're now happy. Why don't you get up? Some woman told me that the husband, who's totally uninterested in meditation or anything else, was just like, she had kind of quit the sadhana. And he didn't even really know what she was doing in the morning. And then one morning she knew it was bad when he was like, he had set his alarm and was like, okay, let's get up. Come on, I'll walk you over to the sheepskin. She was like, oh no. It's gotten very bad. Okay, so let's work a little bit on this pelvic ignition so that you can also have a very balanced, if you have a balanced lower chakra triangle and then a nice open frequency in the upper triangle, you become a very, very attractive person. However you want to use that. And then you become responsible about it. So you're not just, trying to get attention from anybody who will, crook their neck at you, which is an exhausting thing. How much energy everyone's spending because their lower chakras are imbalanced. They just need attention from, basically from the parents that never gave them attention. So they're just trying to get it over and over again. I mean, you're spending a lot of your time trying to get attention because of your own neglect of yourself. Now, if you could just clean that up this week, you're gonna have a lot more time to do the things that you want to do, like actually date people, or create something, or put some energy. If you have a long-term relationship, you have to put energy into it. It requires energy and attention and attentiveness, and it requires maintenance. But if you are trying to get a relationship, it also requires energy. And I can't tell you how many people who want to be in a relationship, and I ask them, how much time are you spending cultivating situations that would put you in a possibility of a date or a relay experience? Usually the answer is very little. So for some reason, we got programmed that it's just supposed to be like, we're going to meet someone who's perfect for us, who's our soulmate. We're going to marry them and have children, and it's going to be perfect, perfect, perfect forever, and then we'll die in each other's arms. I mean, I don't know where this came from, and we don't have to do anything. And if you, and again, in a heteronormative sense, like I've done years of this. You interview men about what they're most scared about with commitment, and one of the things that they're most scared about is that the woman's going to kind of basically stop working on herself after they marry her. True or not true, men? It's true. It can be expressed in different, they're afraid to tell us. It can be expressed in different ways. So, it's like, I'm afraid she's just gonna give up and wear sweatpants all the time. I mean, it can be expressed in different ways, but that's often that is a fear that she's gonna, and then she's just gonna kind of let the thing, she's not gonna work on and the woman holds the caliber of a relationship. If it's same sex, if it's two men, then the feminine principle holds the caliber of the relationship. And that's so if the woman kind of drops it out the bottom, nobody's holding it. And the relationship is already gone, we're in emergency territory. All right, so let's work a little bit on this. This is how we're going to start. Thanks so much for listening to another lecture on reality riffing. These are conversations and topics that I think are very important to discuss. If you enjoyed, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and share with your friends and your family. If you also want to continue to listen, bigger lectures and classes and other experiences are available on gurujagat.com.